Welcome back to a new episode of Book Eaters Podcast. This week, we are talking about coming of age stories. I have an abiding love for coming of age stories. I've just always loved a good coming of age story. So we will start off as we are wont to do with our cocktail. This week, we are drinking Great Expectations. Guess who thought of the name for that? It is very simple: 2 parts pineapple juice, 2 parts tequila, 1 part peach schnapps, and 1 part amaretto. And the inspiration for this drink was the very first time that I
indulged.
I was about 13, and my friend Renee broke into someone's truck. And his name was Bubba, and if he's listening, I'm sorry, Bubba. He worked at a plant nursery, and she worked at the plant nursery. And when I say she broke in, I don't mean like she took a rock and like went in through the window. His truck was unlocked. She just opened it and found a bottle of peach schnapps down in the console. And
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like peach schnapps is not Bubba's drink choice.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he had a lady friend. I don't know.
I think that's the case.
I would be surprised, though.
Maybe his mama liked peach schnapps and he took it from her.
You know what? This is a very good question that I've never properly considered. In fact, now I wonder if this whole tale was a lie. And I need to call Renee up and ask her. Y'all are catching a lot more holes in this story than I did at 13. But in any case, Renee brought the schnapps to my house, and we walked down the dirt road that we lived on to the second bridge, not the first bridge, because we didn't want to get caught. We continued to walk down to the second bridge, where we drank that bottle of schnapps. And the first sip was mighty tasty, and it only grew tastier.
Yeah.
So I knew I definitely wanted to have peach schnapps in it. Does anyone
So
have
you would
a
say that
first-
you had great peach-tations about the peach schnapps.
I really did. I really did. What about you guys? What was the first time you guys experienced the love and hate relationship with alcohol?
Honestly, I can remember like having sips of things, but the first time I ever got wasted was my 21st birthday.
Oh, okay.
And I, because I'm a rule follower. My boyfriend at the time thought it would be fun for me if we did skydiving on my 21st birthday. So in the morning I went skydiving, which is a lot on your stomach, really, jumping out of an airplane. And then after that, I got drunk at one of those tiki bars called Kentucky, and I had one of those drinks called a Scorpion, which they can't legally serve to just one person. And I drank a lot of that, if not all of it, probably. And then later, I projectile vomited in the bathroom. It was pretty gross.
Wow.
I'm going to be honest with you. The Great Expectations is very strong.
Oh, are we going?
I added extra peach juice or extra juice to it because I was like, there's no way that only 2 parts of juice with all of that liquor is going to be sufficient.
It's a martini.
I mean, that's a lot of alcohol with very little filler.
But it's a martini, so.
See, it'll get you, then you'll just be, blah. And
what about you, Iris?
Me, I kind of was boring in my mid-20s. I went through some things with family members who are alcoholics. So I wasn't much of a drinker. It wasn't until I got divorced, seriously, that I actually, because I'm usually a wine drinker or a champagne drinker. And so then one of my good friends, we all went out one night, and I usually go out with groups of people after I got divorced, but I never got drunk. Never did. Not even throwing up drunk. And I don't know what happened that night. We went to an Irish bar, an Irish pub.
The Irish.
And an Irish what?
An Irish pub. And
it sounded like you started to say bar and pub at the same time. So it was like,
I did. I'm
bub.
sorry. I already had started prior.
Well, it all comes back to Bubba.
Yeah. And so what he ended up doing for me was, one of my friends he says, okay, we're going to all take, Iris, you're the only one. You're going to take a car bomb. You're going to have to tank it all the way quickly. I didn't know what a car bomb was. I've never tried one. And so I
So it was an
saw
Irish car
how
bomb.
it was. Yeah, I just, the guy did it for me. The bartender did it all for me. And he goes, go for it. And I did it. I didn't realize what was in it. It was pretty strong. All I know is the whole night I was holding on to my friend, and like the whole room was spinning, and I knew I was toasted.
Spinny drunk is the worst. I don't like spinny drunk.
The whole world was like, I had to lay down. I was like, things I wouldn't never lie down on a public seat. I was just there like, oh my God. I was gone. And I never, ever, ever threw up until I moved to Georgia.
And that's what they all say.
We need to put that on a t-shirt. That's going to be one of our Book Eaters t-shirts. I never threw up until I moved to Georgia.
No, I went out on a date with this guy, and we went to a...
Was his name Bubba?
No, he was British. He was a British guy. And we went to see a concert, and I think he spiked my drink, because all I know is, I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't have been driving. I took off on him because I was feeling so weird. So everything was really like, anyone touched me, it was like this, like everything was like magnified 500 times. And I was
say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, I mean, if you're with a stranger.
I know. And I never felt like that. So I was like, you know what? Before I do something stupid, I'm going home. And I took off.
You got his number?
I drove.
April.
By the time I got to the, I was all of a sudden, I was like, almost like I had 10 minutes to go to get home, and I was like feeling it, the waves. You know how you get the waves, and you're like, okay, you gotta make it home. Don't do it yet. So finally, I got to the gate, and I couldn't make it past the gate. I opened the door, and it just went all out.
You threw up?
Yeah, right there. Everything came right out.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about these books. What are y'all's initial thoughts when I said I wanted to do coming of age books?
To be honest, initially, people always talk about coming of age books. You ever watch a movie where the lead character is really into books? They're always into some coming of age novel. It's always Catcher in the Rye. It's always like this character's so deep because they really, really related to this coming of age character in this really old book. And they're so like old beyond their years. Like that's what it makes me think of, because that's not really me. Like I like cheesy fun.
Well, you're not wrong. I think it is a very easy mechanism in a movie to show depth of character, but there's a reason for it. You know, there's a reason for it, because those coming of age stories, they just resonate. What about you, Iris? What did you think?
This may sound silly, but I was thinking more like Blue Lagoon or Argue That, Judy Blume books, those kind of coming in age.
Judy Blume counts, yeah.
Yeah, but then I did some more research and I realized, wait a minute, coming of age means many things. And then it started, I have questions, okay, of what you would consider books that are not your standard genre, and would you consider them?
Good point, Iris. Because I don't want to confuse it with YA, right? And I think that's easy to be done there's actually a term. There's actually like a German word called bildungsroman, something like that.
I was just Googling it now.
Thank you, Iris. But there actually is a term, and it is about the development of the character. So you can't just have a young person in it.
Oh, okay.
Who, is the protagonist. You have to have.
I think anytime there's a character that starts off young at the beginning of the book, and at the end of the book is like mid-20s, mid-30s, that's coming of age. Not
necessarily, though.
Why?
Because the focus of the story has to be on their development, their personal journey to learning how to be at peace with who they are. To me, that's what it means. Let me add, and I think we kind of touched on this before when we were talking about, I don't know, I think I was sort of half jokingly saying something about always feeling like you were destined for more and you were just waiting for that mystery person to tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, you don't belong here. And you guys were sort of like, yeah, no. But I always felt like most people, and I feel like this is why coming of age books do resonate so much across all cultures, generations, whatever, it's because most people do have that feeling, especially when you're young and you haven't quite found your place in the world. that you don't belong, that you want to, break free, you want to strike out, you want to get away, this is not you.
Possible though that's just one kind of coming of age story, and there are many kinds of coming of age stories. I mean,
Right.
because it sounds to me like that's just a common trope in a coming of age story, and then there are in fact other things like the death of a mentor, or
Experiences of war or anything like that.
right,
Well,
there's
see,
the whole yes, you're the one, there's something special, some new information you didn't know, like you're Luke Skywalker and you have the Force. But then there's also what's that book that we read? God, I can't really remember any books where she's like, where the crawdad sings. That's definitely a coming of age story.
that one is, but she has a personal
Growth.
self-actualization.
She has a growth, but
yes,
she's the same. Like it's not like there's something
no.
special about her. It's just that's how she's been able to adapt and grow up as a person.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
In her situation, but it's not necessarily
That's what I'm saying is the
the
difference
same as Luke
between
Skywalker.
exactly. That's what I'm saying is the difference between just a young protagonist and a coming of age.
You're saying that Luke Skywalker is not a coming of age story?
No. Coming of age to me.
I don't
Well, you
think
know what?
so.
Okay.
I disagree.
Okay, maybe. Luke Skywalker is a coming, although I don't think of their books. I mean,
Well, they're not really books. That was just an example.
but yes, that may be a coming of age, but it's not
Rand and Matt.
Now, I was going to
Wheel
talk
of
about that
Time.
later.
Always special, and then how he grows into that. So that's
Matt, not so
same.
much.
Well, Matt, the story isn't really about Matt.
Well, okay, so what it's coming down to is, yes, coming of age is a broader spectrum, but the part that I love the most is what's called the bildungsroman.
Bildungsroman.
Okay, so it's bildungsroman, and
Bildungsroman.
it's a literary
Roman. Bildungsroman.
Yes, it's a literary genre that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the protagonist from youth to adulthood.
Right.
With psychological growth.
With that in mind, I have a question then, and this is based on a book series, and the author is Isaac Asimov. So there's a whole Foundation series, and and then you have the robot series, and there is one character. He's sort of a protagonist. Yes, he is the protagonist because he ties up all the stories together, and it's Daniel. And Daniel, you don't see him as a young person. He's always never changing, aging. But mentally, because he's a robot and because he's learning, he goes from his first experience with Elijah Bailey being a cop and going through all Elijah Bailey's life, working with him, and then all of a sudden him being the background manipulator in Foundation series. Okay, is that considered Danielle's coming to age story kind of thing?
If it's a psychological growth,
yeah, it was.
then it fits the Dung Roman definition.
Right, because of his growth, it impacted what happened in Foundation and how he saw humanity and the value of humanity and history and all that. I mean, I was just thinking because that's
because he was born, right? He was born a robot. So
right.
It's not like he had to grow up or anything, but he did have to sort of
mentally
come into his own.
Yes.
Learn things.
I was just wondering if that would be considered.
He didn't get programming straight away, right? It just taught him how to do that stuff. It wasn't like the Matrix.
Is like,
all of a sudden you could fly
there's no human
helicopter.
aspect to it, is there?
No. Well, I mean, can you come of age if you're not human?
He did. He became sentient. He is the only.
Yeah, I think he was sentient. Yeah.
He became sentient. So it was Isaac Asimov's way of how what would you consider, it's your definition of what is sentience and living, and how this created creature slowly evolved on his own, and he became his own species.
I'll be honest, most of the time we could have a whole separate podcast on robot abuse. It's something that troubles me. I hate movies where the robots aren't respected and they're just considered to be expendable, no matter how personable or funny they are or how cute their British accents. It troubles me and I can't get past it. So I don't want to sound like I don't value robots, especially as sentient beings who deserve affection and loyalty from humans. But, and this is the elitist in me, and I'm going to have to reckon with that on another day. I have work to do here. But my real my real feelings are that coming of age is a uniquely human experience.
But when you say, well, so like, all right, so like an alien who's not a human wouldn't be, I'm trying to think of a story where there was an alien.
There's quite
I'm
a
not
few.
going to say they don't have a parallel experience that deserves its own term, but don't call it coming of age.
I mean, I feel like I have to disagree.
Of course you do.
I think
Do robots age?
that you just said a psychological growth and development
Yes.
Do robots
into maturity.
do
if the
robots have
robot
a psyche?
begins- Yeah, this one does, apparently. If they begin in a very underdeveloped psychological standpoint and then they evolve over time, like what is that robot, the killer robot? What is those books? Hold on.
I'm
thinking
not
about it. The
saying
book.
they don't have growth and development. I'm just saying they don't age.
Are you talking
Robots don't
about
have birthdays. You just have to call it something different.
Oh, you mean the book's based off of Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep?
That's not what I'm thinking of now. It's the Kevin Free. No, that's who narrated it. Martha Wells. She did a Murderbot series. This is a new, well, it's a relatively new series, but they just had a new book. The robot is the main character of the story. And then there are other robots that are also sentient. You watch this robot sort of grow and like acknowledge and learn about love, and they falls in love with other robots, and there's this whole
It's a beautiful thing, and it deserves to be celebrated.
thing.
Okay, let's make a pact right now. We will do a podcast about sentient robots and their growth.
I feel like you just
But
want me
there
to
are
give
places-
into this, but I don't agree with you.
It's something different. It is something different. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think a Muslim or a Christian could celebrate a bar mitzvah? They could have a.
I don't know what the rules are of a bar mitzvah, but
I think you have to be Jewish.
I mean, maybe. I don't know what the rules
Okay.
are.
Do you think me and you could have our own
Quinceañera?
yeah.
No, because we're in our 40s.
And that is why a robot cannot have a coming of age story.
Because
Okay.
it's in its 40s.
They can have they can have their own thing. We just have to figure out what to call it, but they
feel
can't have.
You're comparing apples and oranges here.
You're trying to make the oranges. You're trying to put an apple into an orange basket.
You're comparing like celebrations with types of literature. I don't think that that's the same.
Iris, you're the tiebreaker.
Iris is the one that was asking the question. I think she agrees with me.
Unfortunately, I do. But here, let me read a little bit further here. It says that the genre is further characterized by a number of formal, topical, and thematic features. The term coming in is sometimes used interchangeably and is used as a wider and less technical. So the technical term is a psychological and moral. So I would think it is a bildungsroman. But
Okay, we should like
Roman.
really figure out how to say that, because it looks like Dong's Roman to me. Like Bill is
I
a
do
Dong
know.
and also
It is-
Roman.
I do remember it's German, and it means
it is German.
Basically, it's an education. Like you have to
Well,
be.
she told us what the definition was
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But the
earlier.
thing about it is whether it's our definition of coming in age, or it would fall within the definition of Bildungsroman.
I feel like that Germans
what
have the best words. Like, why do they get all the cool words?
Can I tell y'all a story about German words?
Oh, cool. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
like to know.
When I was still an X-ray student, so this would have been like 97 maybe, and I was doing my clinical rotations, and I was doing my rotation through nuclear medicine, and the nuclear medicine's tech's name was Ingrid, and she, a lot of people didn't like her because she had a very abrupt personality, and she just was very blunt, and people didn't know how to take her, especially in the South, and we were talking about that one day. I have never had a problem with that. I actually appreciate frankness in people. And I actually thought she was charming and funny, and I adored her. But we were talking about that one day. And so she told me that there is a phrase that they have in German for people who don't speak frankly and always do try to say things diplomatically.
Is it Southern?
It's not, but it should be. And of course, she said it in German. I can't remember the German words, but the translation is talking through the flowers. So if you're saying something, trying not to hurt someone's feelings, but not really saying what you mean, you're just talking through the flowers. And so we should start saying that. And I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
You should probably figure out what the word is.
Okay, but and then when I put like who we're quoting, I'm just going to put Ingrid.
Yeah, Ingrid. The caustic X-ray tech.
All right, so whether or not we all agree on who coming of age can encompass, can we all agree that it is a universal allure? No matter what culture or time period you look in, there are stories telling of how the child grows into the adult.
I feel like I
Right.
can't speak for other cultures because I'm not.
Yeah, but you've read those, like The
I'm not-
Kite Runner.
I have not read The Kite Runner.
Great book. Yeah, it's a great
I'm not
book.
super good at reading stuff. I need to get better at that. This is an area of growth for me.
This is also a podcast about books, and you just said, I'm not really super good at
No,
reading.
I'm reading books outside of my culture is what I'm saying. Like
Oh, okay.
within
Yeah.
my culture, I've read, but like, you know, like we talked about this in a previous episode where you were talking about how we should read books or from other cultures,
Yes.
and I haven't done that, and I feel like that's an area of growth for me.
Okay, well, let me just also say this. Do not read The Kite Runner.
Okay.
Why? It was a great book.
I just
Oh,
loved it.
no doubt. No doubt. It was a great book. It will break you.
Oh yeah, I
It
can't be
will.
broken. Like, we're living in the times of COVID now. I really can't be broken.
No, you're not.
Grey's
uh-uh.
Anatomy is kicking my ass.
But
No,
this
but
is
there-
even
there's a-
worse because it's not, soap opera. It's like fragility and pure innocence being just,
Taken away, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip it.
I would say, let me put it into terms that you may be able to understand. You saw Legends of the Fall,
Unfortunately.
right? It's just gratuitous sadness. And there's moments of beauty. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
thing, it was well acted. The cinematography was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The script was adequate.
Yeah.
And Tony Hopkins with his chalkboard around his chest and
Tony Hopkins.
Tristan come
Anthony,
Yeah, 'cause we're-
Anthony Hopkins.
Who says
Anthony.
who
Sir
says
Anthony
Tony
Hopkins.
Hopkins? It's Anthony Hopkins.
Well, you've not been to his dinner parties apparently.
I have not been invited to any of Anthony Hopkins' dinner parties because I don't know.
Anyways, but so Tristan comes home and he's had the stroke and there's just the chalkboard around his neck that says in a shaky scrawl, and it just says, "Am happy."
You know what?
It's hard. It's
I
hard.
ventured into British television for a minute, and that's when I realized that only Americans believe in happy endings. And I think that that's kind of what's kept me sort of here, because other cultures wanted to be like real and shit.
Well,
And I
that's
don't
an
know.
interesting question. Are there any like eternal optimism cultures besides the USA? Not to say that the USA is great, but there's a lot of seedy underbelly to the USA, no doubt.
Yeah,
what
no,
do we-
we've lost all of our cred. We're not cool anymore.
Right. But what we hang on our flag is optimism. Is there another country that just says, yep, the world is great and we're going to seize the oyster pearl and harvest
Switzerland's flag is a big plus.
intentionally?
It's literally a plus.
It is, but I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know what the purpose.
I'm just saying that kind of shouts positivity to me, because it is a sign for positive, the plus, like on a battery.
First
Okay. I feel like you guys are
Is there-
not. You're
No,
never
I'm with you.
following.
No,
never
I'm
following my jokes at all, ever.
I'm with you now. Who has a negative? What flag? We need Sheldon Cooper here and World of Flags to tell us who would be their negative to Switzerland's positive.
That way we
You
can
know
get a proper charge out of the countries.
Exactly. Let's ask our listeners to post
Sweden
on
has
our.
almost like a positive also. Not.
I feel like Sweden and Switzerland get confused enough. Let's not try to lump them together
Well, all right.
because
So
there's Swiss cheese and then Swede sort of sounds like cheese. So
Maybe it's just because they're both cold weather climates in
Yeah,
Europe.
Netherlands, yeah.
And they start with like S.
Oh, that too. That too.
Yeah.
All right, coming of age.
All right, back to that.
Okay, so back to the original question though, why do you think they have resonated and stood the test of time so much?
I think because we all have to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're growing up, we're all forced to read books. And those books, we're looking for something that relates to where we are. And these characters are where we are.
Oh, I have just tapped in to Michelle's reticence about this topic.
Oh,
She associates coming of age stories with forced reading materials
yes,
from
I
school.
100% do.
Wow.
100%. Because all of these books that you guys talk about are books that I had to read for an assignment. I
What
never.
books have we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about any books yet.
Well, you know what I'm
The
talking about. In the
Outsiders.
movies, The Outsiders, I had to read that. That was a forced reading.
And I can see how if you weren't naturally stumbled it upon your reading path, that might be off-putting because there's a lot of weird catchphrases and lingo that they used in that book, and it was sort of hard to relate to. So I could see how, like, if you were told you had to read it, you would check out.
I mean, I can see also why people would be more inclined to relate to The Catcher in the Rye than they would, say, Animal Farm. Or what are the other books they made us read? And what's the one with when they're all the kids on the island?
Lord of Flies.
Lord of the Flies. Like, it's difficult to relate to those kids because they're the worst of us, right? So it's easier, I think, if you're forced to.
I was thinking about this, like, what are the quintessential, at least American coming of age tales? So and I have two in mind. Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye.
Obvi.
Let's talk about that for a second. You hated it.
I didn't read it.
What?
I have never read it. I constantly I know generally it's about some kid named Holden and
yes,
whatever, he's sort of a sarcastic little shit.
But he loves his,
every guy I dated who was like even a little bit literature of a nerd was always like some weird hard on for this book.
There is a point where it becomes like a prop, part of their like vibe that they're.
It is
like Charles Bukowski. Oh, I felt like the dudes I dated like would casually have that on their coffee table. But anyways, Iris, what did you think of Holden Caulfield?
I don't remember too much of the book, but I did read it when I was in middle school, to tell you the honest truth. I don't remember much.
So Michelle never read it. You read it because you had to.
I own it. If that helps, it's in my book nook, I think.
Well, I mean, it's short. Go ahead and give it a gander.
Yeah. Do you know how many books I have to read right now?
Yeah.
I read it when I was
so buried under books right now. I got like 12. I got to finish before the end of December.
Let's take a beach trip. Let's make a podcast beach trip where we just all bring.
I'm not going to read Catcher in the Rye on a beach trip.
It will take you like 8 hours.
It is.
That's 8 hours of my life I'm never getting back.
Well, okay, so I'm probably the only one who read Catcher in the Rye and took something away.
What'd you take away?
That I appreciate a very, solid vernacular. I love a book that has like the phrasing of the time that I may not understand, but it makes me curious about that time period. But more than that, I loved J.D. Salinger. And so it's, to me, I mean, Catcher in the Rye isn't bad. I just hate that that's what he's most known for.
A lot of people, what's that other book with the two characters, and something?
Well, it's Franny and Zooey, but
Franny and Zoe. Everyone talks about Franny and Zoe like it's like people who want to be like that weird sort of pseudo-intellectual.
I've not read that.
They're always
like. Are you talking about me? Are you talking about me?
No, I'm talking about in general in television shows and in books, and they talk about the nerd person that wants to be pseudo-intellectual. That's like, oh, I liked Catcher in the Rye, but really, Franny and Zoe is where it's at. Like they always.
Well, because that's true. Franny and Zoe is a beautiful book about the Glass family, and the Glass family, I feel like, is probably one of the best literary families of all time. However, and this is where you level up in the pretentious Salinger fandom, okay? It's beyond Catcher in the Rye. It is beyond Franny and Zooey. It is 9 stories. And
I love that
is
Lisa Loeb album.
Oh, is it? I wonder if it's got to be. Okay. So then there's 9 stories, which is a selection of short stories by J.D. Salinger. And the opener of that book is my favorite short story of all time, featuring of the Glass family, Seymour Glass. And the name of that book is A Perfect Day for Banana Fish. And Marcia Hudson, if you're out there, I know we share a love of that story, and I toast you right now. Well, that story will take you 7 minutes to read. So you've got homework. Michelle,
Okay.
Michelle,
What?
you're right. These drinks are strong.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
they're all alcohol.
They're good. I have a question. So you have coming of age books like The Outsider, which is due to growing up and, without parents and that type of life, or, and then you have coming of age books like, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and then you have coming out of age books that deal with war.
Okay, pause.
Okay.
Because you're getting into all of that we're gonna come in a second. Remember your question. Write it down right now.
Okay.
You're writing it down.
Yeah. So I
I'm
just want to
typing
make a
it
note of
down.
this, that you are forcing us to stay in the outline. Even though every time I say that you're forced to keep staying in the outline, you say, I don't do that. This is an example
Okay.
of you doing that. I
Noted.
just want to point it
It's
out.
duly noted.
When I make fun of you for this, you cannot say that you can't
Well, no, it's
gaslight
just
me into saying that it's all on me, because this is
it's
the thing that's
just
happening right now.
I want to know her question, but I also want to finish what we were talking about. Okay. So I said that there were 2 books that I feel like are the epitome of American coming of age stories. One of them, Catcher in the Rye. What do y'all think is the second one? Write your question down so we don't forget it, Iris.
I did.
Is the second?
Okay. So my question is, what do you think is the second book I was referring to as the quintessential American coming of age story? This time with a female protagonist.
Oh, no, female. Okay. Little Women.
Mm-mm.
Oh, no, that's not American. Sorry.
It's American, but not what I was thinking.
Anne of Green Gables.
No,
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
stop. I'll give you a hint. She wrote one book. Well, she also wrote another book, but it was published much, much later in life. She wrote one book, and it was a literary darling. Had to deal with racism and a chifforobe. Seriously?
Chifforobe?
Scout?
Calpurnia?
I didn't
Boo
read that.
Radley?
I didn't read that.
You have never read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, we have.
Oh wait, have I? Maybe.
I have.
No. Maybe. What happens in To Kill a Mockingbird?
I don't know what's happening
Okay,
right
so
now.
So what happened to me is that I moved around in schools a lot, so I missed a lot of the required meeting. Like I never read Animal Farm or the one where they're on the island.
Cool.
And I
Working
never
class, fine.
So what happens, like I would go and then they would just like read the same book I just read in the previous school. And then when I got to like high school, I went to honors English, and then they had us reading us like Metamorphosis and the Canterbury Tales. And I didn't have to read weird stuff like the stuff that everyone else read. So that's why I don't have that foundation. And then in college, they just assumed that I'd already read it. And so I got to read other stuff like Native Son and you know
I
what I
never
mean?
read
Like,
Native Son.
yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm so familiar with it because I'm so well read. I'm saying that
What I'm saying is that everyone assumes that I've already read it. So like in college, I didn't have to reread that stuff. So I don't, that's why I'm lacking
Michelle.
that foundation. And I'm not going to go back and do it because,
Michelle,
oh God.
Michelle, you know how we have that thing where we're like, we're going to have this thing where we go back and we watch all the movies that you can't believe I've never watched?
Yeah.
We're going to take a beach trip. Okay. And I'm going to pack a satchel. Okay. I'm going to pack my book
So you
satchel.
want me to read To Kill a Mockingbird on the beach?
I don't know yet. All I know is that we're going to the beach and I'm going to have my book satchel. And that is how I'm going to limit what I bring, right? Because it's not on my Kindle. It's not ebooks. I will limit what your homework is by what I can carry in my book satchel. And in return, you can have a satchel of movies that I have to watch. And we will spend 11 days at that's more vacation than you've had with Rob, but I'm claiming my time. And while I watch the movies and take notes, you will read the book satchel and take notes. I just really like the word satchel.
I feel also like I don't usually like the books that you like.
No, we will never know because you don't read the books I tell you to read.
All right.
Okay. Iris, say what you wanted to say. I got a little angry with Michelle, and I apologize.
That was hard to tell that you were angry, but that's okay.
I'm sorry you had to see that.
It's fine.
You want me to go back to my question?
Yeah.
I said there's different ways of so there's coming of age story books, but they all tell the coming of age in different ways and based on different situations. There could be like Caging Skies, where it's around the war, The Outsiders, growing up during, I guess that was what, the 50s, late 50s.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Oliver Twist
having-
too, right? Like with
Oliver
being an
Twist.
orphan.
Yeah. Yep. So they're all different, or like Judy Blume, which is just general.
Well, yeah, I had like when I was thinking about this podcast, I had a list of themes. Like, there's definitely war. There's also like orphans. There's definitely a theme of like absence of parents, be it through abandonment or being sent to boarding school. But the ones that always resonated with me were like the not quite fitting in with societal conventions, or like the characters are just super dreamy and just don't quite fit in, or they're, homosexual, or they're not religious when everyone else around them is religious, but some
Exactly.
sort of where you just don't fit with the construct that you were born into. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely themes that sort of push the protagonist through that change and that sort of learning how to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so themes, and now Iris has a question relating to all of those themes.
Right. I have not, sadly, read any LGBT coming of age books. I've not. I've seen movies, but I've not read.
I'm trying to think if I've read any LGBT coming of age stories, because I think like I really like TJ Klune, and he has a lot of LGBT characters. But what's cool about his books is that being LGBT is not anything that's a conflict in his stories, right? So it's like, yeah, they're gay, but that's not the conflict. Like, that's just a thing that's happening and everyone's cool with it. There's this other thing that's the conflict. Well, even in cases where the person is the protagonist that is gay, them being gay is not the conflict in the story. It's just a widely accepted thing. Like, everyone's cool with it, which I love about that, because it gets rid of whatever that tension is. Because what was what was that book called? The Scarlet something?
Scarlet Letter?
No, it was a romance book. Like, I was constantly worried the characters were going to get caught. Like, the whole time I was like, oh my God, they're gay and they're going to get caught and they're going to die. And like, that was always in my mind, and I was always stressed out about it.
While you look, I will agree with Iris that a lot of times it's a side character who's going through that, and it's used as a plot point to show how open-minded and accepting the main character is. And it's not the feature of enough books, at least for women of our generation. I'm sure if we went and looked now, there's a lot of books that deal with it.
What was it called? God. It was a romance story.
I feel like you've had like 8 minutes while Iris and I talked.
Well, you
to
just
figure
keep
this
talking.
out.
I have been looking this whole time, but I was looking for Scarlet, and then I realized that that's not the right word. It's like a story.
Okay, let's back
I'll
it
keep
up.
looking
What's
here.
the story about?
It's about a guy,
Okay.
and he is a son of like an earl or some shit, and he falls in love with another guy, and then he has
You're
to
talking about
go.
A Gentleman's Guide to Virtue?
Yes, that one. Gentleman's Guide to, what is it called?
Virtue.
Virtue.
Yes.
You read it, so you know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of a coming of age story. Like, if you just take the
No.
romance out of it, he's young. He has to figure out what he wants to do with his life. He has to figure out where he's going. And at the end of the book, he's matured and he's grown up.
Somewhat, but that wasn't the focus of the story.
Well, I mean, it was a romance, whatever. But it's kind of a
it was-
coming of age story.
No, that's the whole point of the coming of age. The focus of the story is about that character's growth.
God, it's
And
boring, though.
really, you think so?
I mean, I feel like it's an important part of a book or a story, that the character needs to grow and change, and there needs to be growth, and the characters need to be better off in the beginning of the story than the end of the story. That's important to me. But that
This
can't be the
is-
whole thing. There needs to be other conflicts happening.
Okay, well then that
And there
brings up,
are other conflicts happening. In the book that you were just telling me that I need to read, the conflict that was happening is that her father was the lawyer that was trying the case. There was something else happening that was in the book. It wasn't just about her coming of age.
Oh no, the case was like no. Well, and that's the sad fact of that book though, is it wasn't the racism that was driving the story. It was more about her learning that the people around her, even though that she'd always loved, were racist, and coming to terms with that, and that the people around her that she'd always loved were set apart from her because of their race, and her finding her place between those two worlds. That was the focus of the book. It's hard to explain it because I don't feel like you've really read coming of age
because
stories.
it doesn't really appeal to me. There has to be some reason why their growing up matters to me.
Everyone's transition is beautiful. That's what the whole point is. Okay, so that's what I want to ask you too. Did you come of age? Did the life that you were born into and the life that you have now entail and require a lot of struggle and questioning and having to learn to be different than what you were taught?
So I'm going to have to go with probably no.
I have to go yes. Yeah.
And Iris, do you love a good coming of age tale?
I do.
So maybe that's the difference. Maybe the
difference.
difference is because I haven't grown up yet. I'm
You're
freaking Peter Pan. That's right. I have not grown up yet, so I don't understand a coming of age story because
I don't think it's that you've grown up, but maybe
I was always a grown up.
yeah,
No.
like maybe. Well, just
I mean,
did
it's
you
possible.
always feel like you were born correctly?
I mean, I came up the usual way.
But you know what I mean? Like when you never, like, your whole life felt like something's not right. This isn't where I belong. I don't believe the same things the people around me believe. I don't fit here.
Yep.
No, because my family was very open-minded. They're very relaxed and groovy.
I have,
Like my dad was very extremely anti-religion, whatever. My mom was very much pro-religion, pro-whatever. So I had both sides all the time. And then I sort of was left to my own devices. So it's not like anyone was like, this is the way you should think. This is the way you should feel. No one ever
Okay.
said that to me. I just feel what I
Okay.
feel and know what I know, and that's fine.
I've got your number, lady.
All righty.
You ready?
I'm ready, Freddie.
That totally explains why you didn't come of age, because you were born of age, right?
I mean,
You
yeah.
figured you had to figure yourself out early. No one was telling you who to be. You figured it out.
But I will say that I have changed through the years.
Well, I mean,
Over
maybe that's
time.
what it is.
It's
And
not
Iris, you can confirm or deny. All of us grew. None of us are the same people we were as children.
No, for sure.
I feel like maybe the difference is I
Although
had to
part
go
of me
through.
Feels like I was. Like, don't you feel the same way you felt when you were a kid? About who you
Well,
are?
yeah, but I had to fight to retain that part of me into my adulthood, and I went through a lot of guilt over it.
Oh.
And you never were made to feel guilty about who you are.
No, I'm not guilty.
What? Well, that means you were made to feel another way. What was the other
Well, I
way?
mean, I feel like I didn't fit in for a long time with other kids.
So the discomfort that you feel as a pre-adolescent into adolescence can come from multiple sources. There's the discomfort that you get from your family and your parents and their expectations, and the discomfort you get from your peers and your schoolmates because you aren't conforming to what they think is acceptable and cool.
What I realized is that you just have to hang out with people who think the same way that you do, and then you're fine.
Coming of age stories, I mean, they've always broke my heart. They're so poignant because I went through it. I feel like I went through two coming of ages, to be frank,
Yeah. What about you, Iris?
I correlate. I mean, I had the same situation growing up. I was very different. I wasn't your typical teenager. And then how I dealt with it was pretty poorly, I think. I didn't actually start appreciating, or I felt like I was asleep during the time up until I got divorced. I was sleeping through life. And that's my second coming in age, is when I got divorced, and I was like, oh, wow. And I started learning about life, and I had to really learn about myself again. And finally I really have.
That's when you started drinking.
Yes, that too. I'm like, I feel like I'm a new child right now. I'm still, I mean, I have come to terms with myself, and I've accepted myself and who I am. And that's why when I moved to Atlanta, I haven't really dated as much, because I like myself, and I'm just starting to get the groove going and who I am. And that's not a midlife crisis. All right.
Oh shit, I've still got that to go through.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's coming up soon.
I will say I'm 46 and I'm truly the most happy and contented I've ever been in my life. And that says a lot for someone whose default emotion is happiness.
Oh, wow. I commend you on that. Seriously.
Well, on my happiness? Don't commend me on that because it's my default. I was born with it. I have no control over it. Sometimes I want to be dark and mysterious and brooding, and no.
Oh, so you're never going to be like Holden?
Mm-mm.
See how I can reference it?
No.
Never having read it?
But I'll tell you who I did resonate with. You talk about Anne of Green Gables, right? That's a famous one. I'll tell you who's better than Anne of Green Gables. Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about that. You're right.
That one, oh, damn, I love me some Rebecca. I'm really into the coming of age.
You just brought up a good topic there. I mean, but for Michele, she wouldn't have a book that she would relate to.
I know. You have no, like, what would you say is the young protagonist that you most identified with?
I just finished The Record Keeper, which I know you guys haven't read. But the protagonist in that book, Erica Cobain, she is a rule follower to like a fault, and that's like where all the conflict lays in her story. And she follows the rules so that she doesn't get into any trouble, but then she still gets into trouble. And I really related to that because I'm a rule follower kind of for the same reasons, because it's the safest route, right? If you follow the rules, you're less likely to get into trouble. I related to that character, even though at the same time I didn't love her. I didn't like the character. I was constantly mad at her for doing the very same things that I would probably do if I was in her situation. And the reason why the rule following for her, because some rules are made to be broken or need to be broken, need to be changed, because the rule is the problem, not the people following them. Something that I learned early on is that, yes, follow the rules, but if there's a problem with the rule, then you have to fight like hell to change it.
That's what I love about you. If I could go back in time to 15-year-old Michele,
Right.
I would write you a script.
Oh.
And your prescription would be a book that I read more than once, but unfortunately I don't recall the name of it. Maybe one of our and I can't remember even the main character's name. There were 3 things that stick out about it though. She was a rule follower.
Mm-hmm.
And she met a boy named Bud. This is an 80s teen novel. And they met at a party, and she, out of peer pressure, was sipping on a brandy Alexander, which seemed very exotic to me at the time.
I mean, that is exotic sounding a name for a drink, a brandy Alexander.
We will have that on the podcast one day. So she was drinking a brandy Alexander out of pressure. She was just sipping on it, and she found him at the party, and she asked what he was drinking, and all he was drinking was ginger ale because he didn't feel that same pressure. But when she got drunk because of the brandy Alexander, his name was Bud. Mm-hmm. And she says, who would name a buddy Babe? But what she really meant was who would name a baby Bud, right? But she was a little tipsy, so she got it transposed.
From sipping the brandy Alexander.
Yes. So I remember that scene. And then I remember after that, they sort of went on a day trip to a pumpkin farm. And on the way back from the pumpkin farm, she fell asleep in the back seat. It was a great book. And I feel like you would have loved it, but I don't know anything else about it. I just like, what do you call it? What the cows do with their cud?
Chew?
Yeah, I got these multiple stomachs, and I've been holding that in my first stomach for a long time. Now it's in your stomach, and I need you to do something with it, listeners.
What a visual that was.
So I feel like first of all, if I met a guy at a party, his name is Bud, he should certainly be drinking beer and not ginger ale. Just for the pun of it.
Okay. All right, let's wrap this up. Let's go to the bookend.
Oh, wait, we're already on the bookend?
Oh, did you have something else you wanted to contribute?
I didn't, but I'm just nervous about the bookend. But all right.
I'm just letting my outline go because we bounced around so much, and let's just do the bookend.
All right.
I And piggybacking on Michelle's idea from our last episode, where, when you get back from like summer vacation and it was the first day of class or second day of class, if the teacher wanted to not put too much pressure on you, and yet she would still make you all stand up and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself. So I thought it would be fun if we took beloved characters from coming of age stories and emulated them as if they were introducing themselves to their class. Does anyone want to go first?
I think that you should go first.
I should totally go first. Okay.
Unless Iris wants to. Nope. Should be you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me see if I can get my British accent going.
Oh, British accent.
Okay. I never knew my father. He died, 6 months before I was born. But I had me mother and our housekeeper, dear Peggotty. And they loved their little Davy, they did. They loved him with all their hearts. Until mother, poor, silly, frivolous mother, met Murdstone. And they wedded. And Murdstone and I, well, I'll be frank. We had our troubles, and I bit him. And he sent me away to boarding school. Here with you, Mr. Creakle, at Salem House. And my name is David Copperfield.
That's right.
Thank you. And scene.
David Copperfield.
Okay. Next.
Iris.
Oh, okay. I'm 14 and I love to run track. I think of myself as part of my brother's gang. I have two older brothers are part of the gang.
The
One night,
Outsiders.
A gold.
Who am I though?
Your pony boy.
Pony
Boy,
boy.
yes. I'm sorry, that's my favorite.
That's good. It's a great one. All right,
That is-
Michelle, you're up.
All right. So I suck at this and I didn't write anything down. So I'm going to have to do improv, which I cannot do.
Yes, you can.
This is when all these classes are going to come in handy.
I didn't take any improv classes because I don't do improv. So I'm sorry. And also oh God, that was a weird, loud thing that just happened. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, but write it out. The show must
All
go
right.
on.
All right. Also, I didn't hear when you said beloved. So I just picked one at random.
Okay.
I just want to put that out there in advance. I'd never given much thought of how I could die, but dying in the place of someone I loved seemed like a pretty good way to go.
Romeo and Juliet.
So this summer, I basically stayed at the house with my dad. And every once in a while, at night,
I'm riveted. Please continue.
all
Get it back.
Come on, you got me in suspense here.
right. Hey, I'm coming
This
back
is
to that.
so good. It's so good.
My boyfriend might suddenly show up as if out of nowhere, sort of sparkly.
Oh,
Oh.
my God,
Twilight for reals.
Who am I?
it after you said sparkly.
Who am I? I couldn't go on.
I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But I know Joseph, and
Joseph.
he's the wolf man, right?
Is he from New Hampshire?
Jacob.
Jacob, yeah.
Jacob.
Her
Edward.
name is. That's the problem with that book, is that she's so nondescript.
Miss Bella Swan.
I was way more into that than I was the book. Okay.
Okay. I love reading and I love walking. I am the second child of a family of 5.
Pride and Prejudice. That's definitely got to be Elizabeth
Yeah.
Bennett.
Ah, she's a very handsome woman.
You just embodied her so well. I knew her right away.
Oh, thank you. I love her.
I was abandoned. I was abandoned by my family at the age of 10. I got some help from Tate, Jumping, and Mabel. But essentially, I just raised myself here in the marshes of North Carolina,
Well, we know what that
Huckleberry.
is. But keep going.
Okay.
learning to thrive off the natural resources of the marsh. You know what it is, and just say what it is.
I just love your accent. Keep going.
No,
Hey,
that was
hey, who were your friends? Who helped you at the store and when you drove your boat up to get your supplies?
jumping.
He helped you?
He helped me. He helped
Well,
me with fixing the boat. Helped me to learn how to fish.
who helped you when you got your period for the first time?
Mabel.
Gosh, that woman.
I know.
But they weren't treated right.
They were not
I'm
treated
way
very
off.
right.
Who's this?
This is where the crawdads sing.
What's my name?
I'm bad at that. What is her name?
Kia. Catherine Kia Clark.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I think what comes of this is, Michelle, can you teach us improv?
I don't know any improv.
Well, so Michelle, you don't think you could love one character enough that just their story could sustain you?
What? It depends on what their story is.
Okay. I need to get my satchel packed. This has been a lot of fun for me. And whatever your feelings about coming of age stories, I hope that you are at a place where you feel like you finally belong. And until next time, enjoy the books, you lovely people.
I have broken the ending. Okay.